Okay, this is my attempt to desolder a 40 pin sound chip. I've just switched the desolder station on. The hand vise in the foreground is what I use to grip PCBs. It's got foam rubber in the jaws. That's the PCB I'm taking the chip out of. It's a small one, but it's just one I had lying around that I wanted the chip out of, so I didn't really have anything else useful to do. So hand pressure, hand tight, you're not squashing any components. Usually there's a bit on the board where you can get a good grip on the PCB so it doesn't jiggle about too much. Just switch the light on to just give myself a bit more light, obviously. Just waiting for the solder station to get up to temperature. So I'm basically using a desoldering station and a soldering iron, both temperature controlled. The desolder station is set at 325, the soldering iron is just set at what it's set at. It's an automatic one. I have no idea what temperature it is, but it seems to work. Okay. Starting to clean the tip with the soldering iron there. Make sure your tip's clean. Then heat on one side, suck on the other. The tip of the desolder station shouldn't really be touching the circuit board, it should just be touching the part of the pin that's sticking through. Once it's molten, you apply the suction and give the pin a wiggle to clear out the solder from around the pin. The PCB will move a little bit, but try not to apply too much pressure. And I'm repeating myself or going back to pins, it's because either I've missed one on one side or because it still looks like there's solder in the pinhole. Okay, I'll flip it around so you can see the soldering iron side of things. Not much different. Just put in, it's a small flat tip soldering tip. You press it on the pin, you can see it melt, you can probably see it melting through the through hole as well. Putting the desolder station round the pin and then sucking. Sorry about the quality of the video, but all I have is a webcam at the moment. Fiddling around to try and get a bit of a better view here. You can see the pins that have been cleared there. Now, there I tried to show a bit better view, but the desolder station wasn't straight onto the PCB, so it's harder to solder it. So here I'm back to using the soldering iron at a right angle, the desolder station, sorry, at a right angle to the PCB. Sometimes the desolder station will flick off a pin. That's part of my clumsiness, and partly because the pins sometimes bend. But you can see reasonably clearly there the solder being removed. because you don't have to use a great deal of time per pin. The soldering iron should start to melt it almost immediately, and then the solder gun will just help with the melting and clear out the solder. The desolder stations will need cleaning relatively frequently, but as you can see, I've done pretty much a whole 40 pin chip in one go here. The interruption there was due to my mum phoning up for some technical support for her desktop PC. Sometimes I'll count from the bottom if I'm halfway down, because it just makes it easier to count, because I'm just counting to 10, which is nice and simple. People with mental properties. Babble. Just cleaning up one I think looks a bit suspect there. Moving on to the other side and down to the bottom. This is a 40 pin chip. Excuse me. It's taking about 10 minutes. Which you can probably work out is a good question. How many seconds per pin is that? 10 minutes. One pin in 4 minutes? No, 4 pins in 1 minute. 15 seconds per pin. There you go, mathematical genius. Just flexing a few of the pins there to see if they move. Slipped off a pin, clumsily. Okay, at that point everything looked good. The holes looked clear. Time to attempt to remove the chip. I use a pen knife, the big blade, which is large and flat and disperses the pressure so that you don't have a huge amount of pressure. Sometimes, usually a little click, like some trace elements of solder, will still stick the chip to the board, but if you've done it properly, you won't remove any of the copper pads. Which, as you can hopefully see, that's the case here. None of the pads or tracks have been lifted, despite my clumsy attempts to show the board. There's a couple of scuffs on tracks there, that's the way the board was stored. Now I try and shine the light through the board to give a better view of the clean, beautiful clean holes I've got, but due to the webcam shittiness and my inability to film properly, you can't really see that, because I keep moving the board the wrong way. But hopefully you'll glean some insight. You can see there is a pad missing on the second pin from the bottom there on the right hand side, but that was actually missing from the board. Okay, it's just a wee shot of the chip here to show no copper tracks left on the pins. Everything's pretty clean. Job done.